I need to tell someone what I did, and you're going to think I'm terrible, but there's something about being a military wife that nobody understands unless they've lived it. Everyone thinks my husband Jake is some kind of saint for walking away from me, and maybe he is. But the truth is I'm the one who ruined everything, and the reason I did it, the real reason, is something I've never told anyone. Not my mom, not my best friend, not even my therapist. And it changes everything. If I don't tell this story, you'll never understand why I'm still checking his Instagram every day 3 years later. Why I can't bring myself to delete the thousands of photos on my phone. Why I wake up at 2 a.m. sometimes convinced I hear his truck in the driveway. But once you know what I know, you'll see why those 7 words I said to him weren't just cruel. They were the exact opposite of what I was actually feeling. I was trying to protect myself from something much worse than being alone. I'm going to tell you everything, including what happened the night before he deployed that made me so terrified of his emotions. And the part that makes me look worst, I'm saving that for the end because you need to understand how badly my own childhood messed me up first. You need to see how I got to that moment in our kitchen when he was crying and I looked at the man I loved more than anything and said the one thing I knew would destroy him. My dad never cried, not once in my entire childhood. Not when his mother died, not when he lost his job, not when I graduated high school. He just set his jaw and handled things, and my mom always said that's what real men do. They provide, they protect, they don't burden their families with feelings. I thought that's what I wanted. I thought that's what strength looked like. Jake wasn't like my dad at all, and that's what I loved about him when we first met. I was 23, working at a coffee shop near Fort Bragg, and he came in every Tuesday and Thursday at exactly 6:47 a.m. He always ordered the same thing, black coffee and a blueberry muffin, and he always looked me in the eye when he said thank you. Not in a creepy way. In a way that made me feel like he actually saw me. It took him 6 weeks to ask for my number. 6 weeks of me wearing my best jeans to every morning shift, of practicing how I'd say yes in my head, of my coworker Madison teasing me about my military man. When he finally did it, he was so nervous his hand shook when he handed me his phone. I know you probably get this all the time, he said, but I'd really like to take you to dinner if you're interested. I was interested. God, I was so interested. Our first date lasted 7 hours. We went to this Italian place downtown, and then we walked around talking until the restaurants closed and the bars filled up. And then we sat in his truck in a parking lot and talked some more. He told me about growing up in Montana, about joining the army because he wanted to do something that mattered, about how he sent half his paycheck home to his younger sister who was in college. I told him about my dysfunctional family, about wanting to go back to school someday, about feeling stuck. Not stuck, he said, you're just figuring things out, there's a difference. I kissed him first, I never did that, but something about the way he looked at me made me feel brave. We got married 8 months later at the courthouse with Madison and his buddy Trevor as witnesses. Everyone said we were rushing, that I barely knew him, that military marriages never last. My mom pulled me aside the morning of the wedding and said, you know he could get deployed anytime. You ready to be alone? I said yes. I meant it. The first year was good, better than good. He got assigned to a unit that wasn't deploying and we moved into a tiny apartment off base. I got a job at a dental office. We adopted a dog. We did normal couple things like arguing about whose turn it was to do dishes and binge watching shows and having sex in the middle of the day on weekends. He was attentive in a way I'd never experienced. He asked me about my day and actually listened. He left me notes on the bathroom mirror. He cried during a Pixar movie once and I teased him about it, but I secretly loved that he wasn't afraid to feel things. I should have paid attention to how that made me feel. I should have asked myself why it scared me a little. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse than the normal challenges of being newlyweds, he came home one Tuesday and told me his unit was deploying to Afghanistan in 3 months. 9-month deployment. His face was pale when he said it. We knew this could happen, I said, trying to sound strong, trying to sound like my mom. I know, he said, I just thought we'd have more time first. That night in bed he held me tighter than usual. I could feel his heart beating against my back. I wanted to turn around and tell him I was terrified, that I didn't know how to do this, that my mom's warnings were echoing in my head and I was scared he'd get hurt or killed or come back different. But I didn't say any of that. I just squeezed his hand and said, we'll be okay. The next 3 months were strange. Everyone online thought we were fine. I posted pictures of us at the beach, at breweries, smiling in front of Christmas lights. But privately I was starting to pull away. I didn't mean to at first. It just felt like if I let myself get any closer to him, it would hurt more when he left, so I worked extra shifts. I made plans with Madison. I started arguments about stupid things like how he loaded the dishwasher. Are you mad at me? He asked one night. No, why would I be mad? You just seem distant lately. I'm fine, I said, just stressed about work. I thought I was protecting myself, but really I was building walls that would become permanent. 2 weeks before his deployment, we went to this mandatory briefing for families. They told us about resources and support groups and what to expect. They talked about the emotional challenges. A wife in the front row raised her hand and said, what if our husbands come back with PTSD? The presenter, some officer with a chest full of medals, said something about mental health services and how it's important for soldiers to talk about their feelings. The woman next to me whispered to her friend, "My husband better not come back all emotional. I need him to be strong for our kids." I nodded. I actually nodded like I agreed with her. Jake was quiet on the drive home. "You okay?" I asked. "Do you worry about that?" he said. "About me coming back different?" I should have said yes. I should have said, "Of course I worry all the time, I'm terrified." Instead I said, "You're one of the strongest people I know, you'll be fine." "Strength isn't the same as being okay," he said quietly. I changed the subject. I actually can't remember what I changed it to, but I remember the look on his face, like he wanted to say more but didn't know how. The night before he left, we had dinner with his family. His mom cried the whole time. His dad kept clapping him on the shoulder and saying, "Proud of you, son," in this gruff voice that kept breaking. His little sister Mia gave him a photo album she'd made with pictures of them as kids. He cried when he opened it. Not sobbing or anything, just tears running down his face while he smiled and flipped through the pages. "You're such a baby," Mia said, but she was crying too. On the drive home, Jake was quiet again. That was happening more and more. The silence between us was growing. Back at the apartment, we sat on the couch with our dog between us. We were supposed to be cherishing our last night together. Instead, we watched some action movie neither of us cared about, and I kept thinking about how in 24 hours he'd be gone and I'd be alone, and this whole thing was a mistake because I wasn't strong enough for this. "I'm scared," he said during a commercial. I looked at him. His eyes were red. He'd been crying and trying to hide it. "Of what?" I asked. "All of it, getting hurt, losing someone in my unit, not being able to talk to you for weeks at a time, coming back and you being different." "Me being different, his voice cracked. "I love you so much and I hate that I have to leave." This was it. This was the moment I could have been honest. I could have said, "I'm scared too, I love you too, we'll get through this together." I could have held him. I could have cried with him. Instead, I felt this surge of panic, because my dad would never say something like that. My dad would never sit on the couch the night before he left and cry about being scared. My dad would just go and he'd be fine and we'd all be fine because that's what men do. And I thought, I can't spend 9 months worrying about him being emotional over there. I can't spend 9 months wondering if he's strong enough to handle this. I need him to be strong. I need him to just go and do his job and come back fine. So I said, "Jake, you're going to be okay. You're trained for this." "I know, but you can't think like that. You have to be tough." He wiped his eyes, looked at me. "I am tough. I'm just also scared. Those things aren't mutually exclusive." I stood up. I don't even know why. I just felt like I needed space. "I know, but you can't fall apart right now. I need you to be strong." "I'm not falling apart," he said. "I'm just being honest with you." And then he really started crying, not just tears but actual crying. His shoulders shaking, his breath coming in gasps. He put his face in his hands and said, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I don't want to leave you, I don't want to go." I stood there watching him and I felt nothing but cold terror, because this wasn't the script. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He was supposed to be confident and strong and assure me everything would be fine. He wasn't supposed to fall apart. He wasn't supposed to need me to comfort him. I was 24 years old. I'd been married less than 2 years. I didn't have the tools to understand what I was feeling or why. All I knew was that watching him cry made me feel like the ground was disappearing beneath me. "Jake," I said, my voice came out hard, cold, "you need to pull yourself together." He looked up at me. His face was wet, his eyes devastated. "What? This isn't helping anything. You're leaving tomorrow whether you cry about it or not." "I know that," he said. I just need you to what? Tell you it's okay to be emotional right now. You're going to war, Jake. You need to be focused." He stared at me. I watched something change in his expression, something shut down. "Real men don't cry," I said. I don't know why I said it, or maybe I do. Maybe I said it because my mom had said it 1,000 times about my dad. Maybe I said it because I was terrified and I needed him to stop feeling things so I could stop feeling things. Maybe I said it because some broken part of me actually believed it. He wiped his tears, stood up, looked at me like he'd never seen me before. "Okay," he said quietly. "Jake, no, you're right." His voice was completely flat. "I should go." "Go where? You leave tomorrow morning. Your flight is at 6. "I'll stay at Trevor's tonight." "You're leaving on our last night together." He was already grabbing his keys, his wallet, the duffel bag he'd packed that was sitting by the door. "Jake, come on, don't be dramatic." He stopped, turned around, and the look on his face made my stomach drop. "I'm not being dramatic," he said. "I'm being what you need me to be, strong, unemotional, a real man." I didn't mean, "Yes, you did, and you're right, I can't go to Afghanistan like this, I need to get my head straight." He left, just walked out with his bag and closed the door quietly behind him. I stood there in our apartment, stunned. I kept thinking he'd come back, that he'd cool off and realize he was overreacting and come back so we could spend our last night together. He didn't come back. He texted me at 4 a.m. "I'm going straight to base from Trevor's. I love you. I'll email when I can." I didn't sleep. I just sat on the couch with our dog and cried harder than I'd cried in years, and I hated myself for it because apparently I was the one who got to fall apart, but he wasn't. He emailed me 3 days later. Just a short message saying he'd arrived safely and he'd write more when he had time. I wrote back immediately with a long apology. I said I was sorry, I didn't mean it, I was just scared, please forgive me, I love you. His next email 2 weeks later didn't mention it, he just talked about the weather in his unit and asked how I was doing. I tried to bring it up again, he changed the subject. We emailed back and forth for 9 months like that, surface level updates. How are you? I'm fine. Miss you. Miss you too. But there was this distance that had never been there before and I didn't know how to cross it through a computer screen. Everyone online thought we were fine. I posted the care packages I sent him. I talked about how proud I was. I went to the family support groups and made friends with other wives. Madison kept telling me I was handling it so well, but privately I was drowning. I'd replay that last night over and over. I'd read his emails looking for signs that he'd forgiven me. I'd write paragraphs trying to explain myself and then delete them because I didn't know how to explain something I didn't understand. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse than this awful limbo, I got a call at 3 a.m. from an unknown number. My heart stopped. Those calls mean one thing for military spouses. Mrs. Coleman, a voice said. Yes, this is Sergeant Martinez from your husband's unit. He's okay, but there was an incident. He was injured in an IED blast. The room spun. How badly? He's stable, broken leg, some burns, possible concussion. He's being evaluated now. Someone will call you with more information soon. He was medevaced to Germany, then to Walter Reed. I flew out to D.C. as soon as they told me he was stationary. I hadn't seen him in 7 months. He looked smaller in the hospital bed. His leg was in a cast. He had bandages on his arms. His face was thinner, harder. When I walked in, he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Hey, he said. Hey. I wanted to run to him, throw my arms around him, sob into his chest, but something in his expression stopped me. I sat in the chair next to his bed. How are you feeling? Been better. He gestured at his leg. 6 weeks in this thing, then physical therapy. I was so scared when they called. I'm okay. We talked for an hour, surface things, his injuries, the explosion, when he might get released. It felt like talking to a stranger who happened to look like my husband. When visiting hours ended, I kissed his forehead. He let me, but he didn't reach for me the way he used to. Over the next 6 weeks, I visited him every day. I watched him do physical therapy. I brought him books and food from outside. I tried to make him laugh. Sometimes it worked. Mostly it didn't. The doctors said he was healing well physically. They also said he was showing signs of PTSD and depression and recommended he see a therapist. He refused at first. I'm fine, he kept saying, but he wasn't fine. He had nightmares. He'd wake up gasping, and when I tried to comfort him, he'd pull away. He stopped talking about anything real. He went through the motions of recovery like he was checking boxes. One night a nurse pulled me aside. Is he talking to you about what happened? Not really, I admitted. You should encourage him to see the therapist. He's holding a lot in and that's not healthy. I tried, I really did. Jake, maybe you should talk to someone. The therapist here is supposed to be really good. I don't need to talk to anyone. But you're having nightmares and I seem what? Distant, you seem distant. He laughed, actually laughed. It was bitter and harsh. That's rich coming from you. What does that mean? He looked at me, really looked at me. Do you remember what you said to me the night before I left? My throat closed. Jake, because I thought about it a lot over there. When things got bad, when I watched my buddy lose his leg, when I was lying in the hospital in Germany, I thought about my wife telling me that real men don't cry. I didn't mean it. I was scared and I said something stupid and I've regretted it every single day. You meant it, he said quietly. Maybe you regret saying it out loud, but you meant it. You were right. I pulled myself together. I stopped being emotional. I did my job. I was strong. Jake, and you want to know what that got me? I can't sleep. I can't stop seeing Thompson's face when the blast hit him. I can't close my eyes without hearing the explosion, but I'm not crying about it, so I guess I'm doing great. I started crying. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't, he said. Don't cry, because the fucked up thing is I still can't. I haven't cried since that night. Not when the IED went off. Not when I thought I was going to die. Not at Thompson's memorial. I can't anymore. You got what you wanted. I didn't know what to say. I just stood there crying while he stared at the ceiling. He came home 6 weeks later. We went back to our apartment and it was like living with a ghost. He was polite, distant. He went to his physical therapy appointments. He started seeing a therapist because the army made him, but he never told me what they talked about. He got a job doing administrative work on base while he finished recovering. We existed in the same space, but we weren't married anymore. Not really. I tried everything. I suggested couples counseling. He said okay, and we went to 3 sessions before he said it wasn't helping. I tried to talk to him about that night, to explain myself, to apologize properly. He'd just say it's fine and change the subject. I tried to be supportive, to give him space, to not push. Nothing worked. Madison told me to be patient. He's been through trauma, he needs time. My mom said maybe this is just who he is now, you have to decide if you can live with it. The wife support group said PTSD is hard on marriages, you're not alone. But I was alone. I was married and living with my husband and completely alone. 6 months after he came home, I woke up one Saturday and he was sitting at the kitchen table with coffee, staring at nothing. You okay? I asked. I think we should talk, he said. I sat down, my heart was pounding. I've been thinking a lot, he said, about us, about everything, and I don't think I can do this anymore. Do what? This marriage, pretending everything's fine when it's not. We can fix it, I said. We can go back to counseling, we can. Emma. He looked at me. Do you love me? Of course I love you. Do you love me, or do you love the idea of me? The version of me that fits what you think a husband should be. That's not fair, isn't it? You told me real men don't cry. You wanted me to be strong and unemotional, and I tried. God, I tried so hard, but I can't be that person anymore. I can't keep everything locked inside to make you comfortable. I don't want you to do that. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I know you know that now, but Emma, I can't trust you with my feelings anymore. Every time I want to open up to you, I hear your voice telling me to pull myself together. And I can't live like that. I was crying. He wasn't. He just sat there looking at me with this sad, resigned expression. Please don't leave, I said. Please, I'll do better. I'll be better. I'm not leaving, he said. You are? What? I talked to a lawyer. I'm filing for divorce. I'll buy you out of the lease or you can stay and I'll leave, whichever you prefer, but I can't do this anymore. Jake, please, he stood up. I'm going to Trevor's for a few days. Give you time to figure out what you want to do. I'm sorry, Emma, I really am, but I need to be able to feel things again and I can't do that with you. He left, packed a bag and walked out the same way he had the night before his deployment, and this time I knew he wasn't coming back. I called Madison. I called my mom. I sat on the floor and cried until I couldn't breathe. Our dog came and sat with me and I thought about how even the dog knew something was broken. I didn't fight the divorce. What was I going to say? He was right about everything. I had wanted him to be someone he wasn't. I had needed him to be unemotional because I was too scared to deal with my own feelings. I had said the one thing I couldn't take back and it had poisoned everything. We split everything down the middle. I moved back in with Madison. He kept the apartment and the dog because I was working too much to take care of her. We saw each other one more time to sign papers. He was polite. Asked how I was doing. Told me he hoped I'd be happy. I wanted him to yell at me, to tell me how much I'd hurt him, to show me something other than this careful politeness. He didn't. He just signed the papers and shook my hand and left. That was 3 years ago. I've been to therapy, a lot of therapy. I've worked through my childhood stuff, my fear of vulnerability, my toxic ideas about masculinity and strength. I understand now why I said what I said. I understand that I was repeating patterns I learned from my parents, that I was protecting myself in the most destructive way possible. Understanding doesn't fix anything. I dated someone for a few months last year, nice guy, accountant, very stable. He cried during a movie and I had a panic attack in the bathroom. We broke up the next week. Everyone online thinks I'm fine. I post pictures with friends. I talk about my job and my apartment and my life. I never mention Jake. I never post throwback photos. I act like that whole chapter of my life never happened. But privately I'm still checking his Instagram. He doesn't post much, but when he does, I analyze every photo. He looks happy. He has friends. He got a dog that looks just like ours. Our old dog died last year and I cried for 3 days when I saw his post about it. He's in therapy based on some cryptic posts about mental health. He seems okay. He seems better without me. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse than this endless guilt, I saw last month that he's in a relationship. He posted a photo with a woman. They're hiking. They're both smiling. The caption says, "Good people make hard days easier." I looked at her profile. She's a therapist. Of course she is. She posts about mental health and emotional wellness and the importance of vulnerability. Her page is full of quotes about healthy relationships and communication. She's everything I couldn't be for him. I ugly cried for 2 hours. Madison found me on the couch with an empty wine bottle and made me delete Instagram from my phone. You have to stop doing this to yourself, she said, but I can't. Because the worst part about what happened, the part I've never told anyone, not even my therapist, is that I think I said those words on purpose. I've spent 3 years telling myself I was scared and traumatized and working through my own issues. And all of that is true. But there's another truth underneath it that I can barely admit to myself. I think part of me wanted him to leave that night. I was terrified of the deployment. Terrified of 9 months of worry. Terrified of him coming back different. Terrified of being a military wife. And some small, terrible part of me thought that if I could make him angry enough, if I could push him away enough, maybe he'd break up with me before he left and I wouldn't have to do this hard thing. I didn't consciously think that. I didn't plan it. But when I replay that moment, when I remember the surge of panic I felt watching him cry, I remember something else too. I remember a tiny voice in my head saying, if he can't handle this, maybe we shouldn't be together. I wanted an out. I wanted him to be the bad guy. I wanted to not have to be the one who couldn't handle military life. And instead, he went to Afghanistan traumatized by my rejection. He went over there unable to trust his own emotions because his wife had told him they made him less of a man. He got blown up and came home broken, and I still tried to make it about me, about my fear, about my issues. I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me because I was a coward. My therapist says I need to forgive myself, that I was young and scared and doing the best I could with the tools I had, that beating myself up doesn't help anyone. But how do you forgive yourself for something like this? How do you move on knowing you looked someone you loved in the eye and said the exact thing that would hurt them most because you were too scared to be honest? I think about messaging him sometimes. Writing him a letter, telling him everything I understand now, apologizing properly. But what would that accomplish? It wouldn't be for him. It would be for me, so I could feel less guilty, so I could feel like I'd done something to make it right. He doesn't owe me forgiveness. He doesn't owe me closure. He doesn't owe me anything. He's happy. He's with someone who can give him what he needs. He's healing. And I'm here still stuck in that moment in our kitchen watching him wipe his tears and walk out the door. The worst part about what happened isn't that I said those words. The worst part is that I meant them. And by the time I realized how wrong I was, it was too late to take them back. I told him real men don't cry. He wiped his tears, walked out, and never came back. And I deserve every single day of regretting it. People ask me sometimes why I'm still single. Why I don't put myself out there more. Why I'm so closed off. I don't tell them the truth. I don't say that I'm terrified I'll do it again. That I'll meet someone wonderful and sabotage it because that's what I do when I'm scared. That I don't trust myself not to hurt people. I just say I'm focusing on my career, on myself. On being happy alone. And maybe someday that will be true. Maybe someday I'll actually forgive myself and move on and find someone who I don't destroy. But right now, 3 years later, I'm still that girl standing in the kitchen watching the man she loves walk away. Still wishing I could go back and hold him instead of pushing him away. Still wondering who I would be if I'd been brave enough to cry with him instead of telling him crying made him weak. I know what I did. I know why I did it. I know it was wrong, and I know that knowing all of that doesn't change anything. He's gone, I did that, and I have to live with it. That's the story, that's what I did. You can think I'm terrible if you want, you'd be right, but at least now you understand why I'm telling you this. Why I needed someone to know. Because everyone thinks they know what happened between us. Everyone thinks he left because of PTSD, because deployment changed him, because military marriages are hard, and all of that contributed. But the real reason he left, the reason I can never take back, is that I looked at his pain and decided it made him less of a man. I was wrong. He was the strongest person I've ever known. Strong enough to be honest about his fear. Strong enough to ask for what he needed. Strong enough to walk away when I couldn't give it to him. Strong enough to cry. And I wasn't strong enough to let him.